What's up, family? It's your boy Prince here with another video on the markets. Today we are going to have a deep dive into the dollar and of course what is going on with Russia and this whole gold situation as well. So there's some interesting developments taking place at the minute. I'm just going to jump straight into it and we're going to look at, of course, this article that Wall Street Silver has posted on Twitter. So the article reads, Russia moving closer to a gold standard. Moscow is working on linking the price of the ruble to bullion and other commodities. I assume personally that's going to be oil, gas, but of course it doesn't actually define what it means by other commodities yet, but we do know that they are exporters of those too. So just following on to say, Russian experts are working on a project to create a two-loop monetary and financial system in the country. Secretary of the Security Council Nikolai Patrushev said on Tuesday in an interview with Rossiyskaya Gazeta. He explained that the project involves the provision of the Russian currency with both gold and a range of goods representing a currency value. As a result, the ruble exchange rate would correspond to its real purchasing power parity. So essentially, in layman's terms, what is this saying is that they're planning to give the Russian ruble value. Of course, this day and age, fiat currencies aren't pegged to any assets or any tangible goods, so it allows central banks to print to infinity. Of course, this devalues something that is already valueless or worthless, I should say, because it's not pegged to anything. It's essentially just monopoly money. It's just paper. The only value that it has is what we accept or what we recognize it as being. So what's happening here is, of course, with the Ukraine-Russia conflict that's going on, of course, you know, the sanctions that have been put on Russia, they're looking for alternatives because, of course, they are trying to, they are being excluded from the global economy, which, of course, won't ever work because they are one of the largest exporters of gas. Most countries, especially in Europe, actually rely on Russia very heavily for their gas imports. So putting sanctions on them is kind of like a double-edged sword, really, where you're stabbing them, but you're also stabbing yourself at the same time. Of course, these governments and their policies, you know, they're just hoping that it will affect Russia more than it will affect them, which doesn't seem to be the case so far, as, of course, the Russian ruble itself has bounced back since the sanctions were put in place, and is actually stronger than it was before the sanctions took place. So it remains to be seen, of course, if they will do this, but of course there has been speculated for some time that countries have been looking into going back to a gold standard. It seems that Russia is going to be the first mover in this new policy, and of course this would actually spell disaster for the dollar, because if Russia do it, you can imagine that, of course, so will other countries. They'll follow suit, and eventually many other global powers will start to peg their own currencies to the dollar, to the gold. So just moving on to this tweet here, this is actually the Russian central bank's gold reserves. This graph represents their stock and what they've been increasing. So it's from 2006. You can see since the 2007 financial crash there, 2007, 2008, there's been a steady increase in Russia's gold reserves. So it's interesting to see that around 2020, they have plateaued at around 2.3 thousand tons of gold. So it seems that whatever is going on during this period from 2006 onwards, they're preparing for something. And of course, everyone knows, you know, gold is God's money. It is always good to hold more than than have the actual paper assets itself. So you could argue that Russia are just buying gold because it's actually worth something. But it seems that, for the conspiracy-minded or for the critical thinkers of us, it would seem that maybe they have a plan in place. And could it be tied into actually now they're making taking action on that plan and finally looking to pegging their currency to gold. So just going to move on to this here as well. So Reuters actually tweeted saying that Swiss shipments of gold to the United States surged in March to their highest since May 2020. So of course during the crisis, everyone was panicking, the markets were down, everyone was moving to safe haven assets. During these times, gold and silver are sought out for because, of course, they're limited, low in demand, low in supply, or limited supply, I should say, and of course they don't lose their value, especially when paper money is being printed to infinity during this crisis as well. But now it says Swiss customs data showed, as investors spooked by Russia's invasion of Ukraine and the threat of a global economic slowdown, stocked up on bullion. So what's happening now is, again, people are looking to buy gold. So it says in this article that it's due to the invasion that's taking place. Of course, there's uncertainty and fear in the market again. People are flocking to safe havens. But you've got to remember that in America, the US dollar is still the reserve currency. So in times of turmoil, countries swap their currency for the US dollar, as it is recognized as a safe haven and a hedge against crises. So it's interesting to see that people are swapping their dollars within the US for gold. So could it be that, you know, they're losing confidence in their dollar? It would seem so. They're trying to protect their wealth with other assets. Gold, of course, being the one in this example. Now I'm just going to flick over to the DXY, the Dixie, or the Dollar Index, whatever you'd like to call it, and I'm just going to show you. So this is the weekly chart. Now I've already taken the liberty of putting some lines and boxes and whatnot in here, and I just want to show you something very quickly. So as you can see, these three grey boxes here represent very interesting points of time for the dollar index. These were the highs of its strength. So if we go back to here, this is in 2017. Now what happened in January 2017? Of course, this was the start of the famous bull run for crypto. At the same time, stocks also had a interesting bull run as well. So the dollar index reached the high of 103, call it, and then the bed pretty much, you know, it's plummeted down all the way to 2018, where it bottomed at around 88. So during this time, of course, assets were flying, the dollar crumbled, and again, let's go to this next box, which is around March 23rd, where it was the high there, and again, the same thing happened. We came into this zone, the dollar collapsed. At the same time, of course, we know why this happened, is because of the pandemic, but after that happened, there was a massive recovery. People were calling for a V-shaped recovery, and you know, it actually came in. Of course, more people were shouting for prices are going to go lower. This is the end of the world. The market's going to completely collapse. Everything's going to zero. That didn't quite happen. The dollar collapsed, but everything else enjoyed a rally. Now, fast forward to where we are now, 2020, April, coming into May. We have entered this zone again for the third time. So the question is, of course, is the dollar going to continue gaining strength, or is it going to do exactly what it's done the last two times that it's entered this zone and completely collapse on itself? If it does completely collapse on itself, this would mean, of course, that assets are going to fly. Your stocks, your golds and silvers, your commodities, and of course your crypto as well. So, of course, we're sitting on our hands at the moment, but this is an interesting point in time. Given the news coming out with Russia looking to peg their gold to the dollar, of course, what would that mean? That would mean that the demand for the dollar will essentially go down. Of course, we've recently had the petro yuan come out, where, you know, China aren't buying petrol in dollars anymore. They're using their own currency. Again, further diminishing the power and the grip that the US dollar has on the financial market. So as more countries move away from using the dollar, of course, the dollar will lose strength. So the next coming weeks, months are going to be very interesting. You know, the dollar is on a knife's edge at the minute. Given the fundamentals, it's very hard to see that the dollar is going to continue its strength through this zone and carry on going. But of course, anything can happen in the markets. We may sustain this for a bit longer before countries do start switching over to their own gold-backed currencies. But, you know, that's all we have for today. Just want to end by saying I really do appreciate you taking your time to consume my content and watch the video. And I just want to finish by saying, stay positive, stay happy, and have an amazing day. Peace!